and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who's always on the fast track. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello, yes, sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad, in the sense that I could just be rushing through a project.
Yeah, that does happen.
Yeah,
we have many things to do.
It does.
Do you get the reference?
I do, and that's what I was alluding to as well with the 2026 World Cup bid. I'm assuming you are referring to?
Yes, there's the FIFA Congress in Bahrain right now, and it was agreed by FIFA that they're going to fast-track the World Cup bidding process for 2026 World Cup. So that there's the US, Mexico, Canada joint bid, right, for 2026. So far, that's the only bid. They have now said that they've got the rest of the world has got until August 11, 2017 to submit a rival bid. And assuming, if nothing else, it's just ours to take.
And do we know why they've decided that they need to fast-track this? Because 2026 is right around the corner?
I mean,
9 years from now?
Right. Part of the thing is that the US, Mexico, Canada, and by that I mean Sunil Gulati, asked for it to be fast-tracked, right? They made it clear that's what they wanted to happen.
Yeah, and I mean...
I think it was just to get on with it and make it official. Because honestly, it does seem like when Gulati was working the room at Infantino's crowning, I'm going to say, this seemed to be part of the deal.
Yeah.
We have a Machiavellian in charge of US soccer and like making things work out for US soccer.
Yeah, I think two things here. I think one, you are going to hear rumors of other countries or like joint countries bidding for this one, but not really. I have a feeling it's going to be more like we're thinking about it, but if you back us for 2030, then we'll back off because that's the centennial. One that's like Uruguay, Argentina, maybe you're bidding for that one.
Yes.
So maybe South America will back off. And
so
then I bet
all of South America will back off.
Yeah, and then I think you might get like one or two other ones that's more about, kind of generating leverage for down the road. And then, because the second thing I'll say is that if your whole pitch is like, as we routinely hear, you could host the World Cup in the United States tomorrow if you wanted to. You can't then be like, but we need 9 years to prepare for this. Like, you kind of can't do both. But yeah, I think it seems like it is going to be a foregone conclusion. It will be that joint bid between Canada, United States, and Mexico. So they're just trying to get it official so things can get moving. I
just want to maybe check our roll and slow our roll a second. Are we taking this for granted? Is there going to be some like secret sort of Japanese bid that just comes out of the blue and is amazing? And maybe they come good on that promise to broadcast holograms of the game around the world so that you could the World Cup is in Japan, but we could go to City Stadium in Richmond and have it broadcast onto the field for us to watch.
That would be awesome.
It'd be pretty good, right?
That was their pitch, but I think maybe
it would be almost as good as actually hosting the World Cup.
No, but but I'll say this: maybe we've learned from unrealistic proposals that maybe you go with what is actually available and not. We're pretty sure by this point we'll have that technology because maybe that didn't work out so well with other World Cup bids. But you're right though that I remember the 2022 bidding process and I remember thinking like, oh, it's going to be the USA, and I will never forget Grant Wall tweeting, the FIFA executives are hugging the Qatar delegation and they haven't announced things yet. This seems bad.
Oh, I remember that day. Yep. I still remember that day. Yeah.
Yep. I remember being angry, and that anger has not yet gone away.
So we'll keep an eye on this until August 11, 2017.
Yep.
If no other bids come in, then it's coming, and we can start preparing many podcasts for 2026.
Let's do it.
On today's show, we'll be answering 1, 2, 3, 4 questions, and we'll have some scouting reports for you. I'm kind of excited about all these questions.
Yep.
So you ready to get straight to it?
Let's get straight to it. Shall I read the first one since you've done all the lovely introducing?
Yes.
All right. The first one comes from Matthew Celio. I apologize if I butchered that one. You often mention things players say on the field. Most recently, you mentioned hearing Higuain yelling, Danny.
That was for the Alves back heel to Higuain, for the Juve goal.
My question is, says Matthew, what are the standard things pro players say to each other during a game? Also, how does that differ across the globe, and what should I be using in my rec league?
Okay. Should we start with the first part first then? And I'd also know, okay, let's start with this.
Yeah.
Is it necessarily that different? Because I've seen programs like in person, I've seen programs on TV and overheard what people yell, and I've played in our rec games with some like good quality players and some like not so experienced players. The talking is mostly the same, at least from the good players.
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe at like a world class / professional level, it becomes more concise and it becomes more like as you raise,
because more things are taken for granted.
Yeah, and as you raise your skill level, I think it also becomes there's more of an expectation that you can execute things, but it probably also becomes you don't have time to say like, Daryl, you have plenty of time. Don't feel the need to rush. It's got to be like very quick and to the point because you got to get the ball moving.
And the more you're a professional, the more experienced you are, then you almost learn this second language of shorthand. It's almost like, the old shorthand like court stenographers used to use, where just a simple thing, you know what that means because you've experienced so much soccer.
Yeah.
Can I give you a base layer sort of thing that I think about this?
Sure.
Is most of on-field communication between players, it's just about conveying information about what's around you and what's happening in shorthand. So that's sort of what I think it's all about.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that tends to cross language boundaries. I'll say from my experience, having not played professional soccer, I can say that when I was playing in Turkey, there's always time. There's not always time. When I was playing in Turkey, we had people from 12, 13 different countries in any one kind of pickup game, and you kind of learned how to communicate pretty quickly because
you'd all played a bit as well, though, right?
Yeah, and so you kind of everybody knew some English and some Turkish and a little bit of Spanish here and a little bit of Italian there, and so you can kind of blend that into a fairly easy list of commands for what to do and what not to do.
Right, and you can always tell by the tone of whether someone's saying like pass the ball quickly or dribble, and then there's no room there to be like, hey, when you receive the ball you should probably lock your ankle and do this and that. Everyone's at a higher level than that, so it's information about what's going on around you and what you want people to do.
And I think with that,
we'll get to some terms in a minute, by the way. If people are waiting to hear some of the things that are said on field, we'll get to those, don't worry.
But I'll say this though, to your point about like when you get to a certain level, things you can kind of take for granted. I'll also say that the more you play with a certain group of people, even if it is 8 players who all speak 8 different languages, you'll slowly learn what to expect. And so it can be as simple as yes and no. Being able to say that, to say like, yes, pass me the ball, versus like, no, or like that, the varying degrees of no from quiet no to screamed no can indicate what you want the player to do.
Okay, here's a question, because we have people listening who don't play soccer. Why would you yell no?
I mean, I think the times that I would yell it is either in frustration when someone has just done something, but that's less about communication.
Like screaming at the sky.
And more about venting, yeah.
That's more venting.
I would say the one obvious one would be when I don't want the ball. So
because you see that because someone gets that look and then you know they're going to give you the ball, but you're aware that someone is coming towards you. Then you say no, because you don't want that bad pass to happen, right?
And then yes.
John Stones will still give it to you.
True. Yes would be either like continue to do what you're doing, CCC, evet, or it could be like I'm open, pass me the ball. But again, part of that is also the gestures, that even as I'm saying this right now, when I'm saying yes, pass me the ball, I'm gesturing with my hands like pass me the ball. It's what you do in a game.
So should we get to some phrases then? What are some commonly used phrases? I would say at professional level, maybe in another language in a different culture, but basically mean the same thing. You can Google translate the words yourself. And they also work at rec level. Can I start you with a basic one?
Sure.
Time.
Time.
Which actually, if you just think about it, doesn't mean that much on its own. Like
Tranquilo.
I'm just expressing like the concept of time to you. But if I give you the ball and I yell time at you, what does that mean?
It basically means I don't have anybody pressuring me. I have time to pick my head up, see what's going on, and really just kind of possess the ball for a second. Versus man on, for example, and you've got somebody pressuring you and you've got to get rid of it. I'll add here, I have played with many different women's players, all of whom hate when I say anything other than man on.
Of course,
Yeah, because it's
Laura told us that, right?
Yeah, Laura told us that, but I mean, like when I would work college camps with women's players who are very good.
Are you saying women's players?
Yeah.
You mean female players?
Well, no, I'm saying like women's games.
Women's teams.
Yeah, I don't want to say girls.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? And I would like try to be like person on, and they'd be like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Like just say man on. Like this is one of those where it's not a big deal.
I think that the thing Laura told us was basically it's just brevity, right? Yeah. Why add an extra syllable?
Yeah. He or she on.
Yeah. Man on, just 2 syllables. Okay. Why is that an important thing to communicate? Because I think man on is one of the best ones. So it gets to the heart of why you yell things at your teammates.
Yeah, I mean, because you can hear footsteps for sure. Like if you have the ball, you can definitely sense when a person is coming when you have the time to do that. But a lot of times the ball's coming to you, you're trying to see where you're going to play the ball next because you should always have your head on a swivel. You're trying to pick out where your runners are going to be, where you are in relation to them. It's just so much information you're processing that sometimes you might not notice that there's a person bearing down on you, and you can get cleaned out or you can lose the ball. You can concede possession. You could concede a breakaway. So you need to know how quickly you should be playing. And again, that's the difference between time and man on.
And man on literally means someone is coming to get you, do something about it. It's like a warning, right? It's like yelling to your teammate, warning, you're under attack.
Yeah, and then that's one like the very basic drills that like we would do when I was a player, and in terms of coaching was man on. It means you play the ball right back where it came.
Yep.
Turn means you've got time to turn.
Yeah, they're almost the
change
opposite.
direction.
They're the opposite of each other in many ways, right? Time means do whatever you need, do whatever you want. Man on means do something fast and make sure you don't get tackled.
And turn essentially means you have time to change direction, that you don't have anybody behind you, you don't have a man on, so you can turn and dribble a little bit.
Okay, what's the thing you hear me say the most when I'm playing in the back with our team, which I believe also happens at the professional level?
I think Taylor get rid of the ball. I hear that from time to time.
Okay, that isn't the one, but let's go with that.
No, I'd say step is the one I hear you say most often.
Yeah, step is the one. So if you're imagine a defensive line, you often see them in a line, right? You will always have someone in the back who is in charge of making sure the defensive line all steps up together so that someone isn't left behind playing everybody onside. So step is the shorthand for everybody step forward. That's something that works at the professional level, should work at your rec level. I'll tell you what, if you can figure out an offside trap at a recreational level, you are in business.
Yeah, you really can. And I'll say this, so step in like just as that one command means everybody get forward.
Yeah.
But then you can have the specified, Daryl step to him, Daryl step to her.
Step two.
And it's basically then go defend that person. Don't just stand off and wait for them to dribble. Make sure you get to them and shut down that person on the ball.
Okay, any other sort of big, obvious phrases?
But I want to say, as I hit my mic, I want to say, though, but like this is to your earlier point, that step is what you and I know. It's what we would say to each other. It's what we would teach like the guys who are on our team or work with the guys on our team to understand. But by the same token, screaming get out, or even if we didn't speak the same language, if you just turn to me and you like kind of do that gesture of like push forward and you're yelling, I know, okay, I better move forward. Like that's one where
it's the waving arms forward gesture that goes with it. That's sort of the international gesture for everybody step forward.
Yeah, I mean, and
that works in an airport, that works on the street, that works in a back four, it works in a back three.
And so I think at a very basic level, a lot of soccer communication is nonverbal.
Yes.
Or is at least paired with nonverbal communication to really get the point across. So we've covered what man on, step, turn, all that good stuff. I would say then it kind of gets to a little more nuanced stuff of like inside, outside, of like if you're defending, if I want you to show the defender inside, or show the attacker inside. So
I'm defending, you're asking me to show the attacker inside?
Yes, that means basically take away the outside. Don't let them dribble.
What does the outside mean? The outside means like going wide towards the wing, right? Towards the touchline.
Because the idea would be like maybe they've got an overlapping runner. Maybe we're not set up to defend across, but I am there so that if
maybe you play for Juventus and you know Sami Khedira's waiting in the middle. Show him inside, Sami will tackle him.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. Exactly. That if I'm telling you that, it usually means that I've come across as a second defender, and I'm saying show him inside because I'm here, or show him outside because we don't have the personnel here to deal with that.
How about square? I find myself yelling square quite a lot.
So, in which context?
If you have the ball and I come and run alongside you and I want the ball, I will say, Taylor, square. Which actually, again, like out of context, I'm just yelling shapes at you?
Yeah.
Taylor, rhomboid. You know what I'm saying?
Rhomboid?
any shape.
Were you going for rhombus there?
Rhombus, sorry, yeah.
I think you just combined rhombus and trapezoid.
I did.
Get on my geometry level, my friend.
I'm yelling imaginary shapes at you.
It means...
Trapeziangle. That's
sure.
Okay, so what does square mean? If I yell square at you,
I think you just combined trapezoid and a brewery in Petersburg, Virginia. I could be wrong, but it basically means play the ball lateral.
Yes,
or not even necessarily to my feet laterally, but yes, that's where lateral comes from.
So I was going to ask, is that a British thing? Have I been saying square to people all this time, and I should have been saying lateral? Or is square something in American soccer culture?
I would say square is the one that I grew up
hearing. So you did as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are standing like in like a parallel line to me. It basically means that you are either already occupying that space or are going to occupy that space. So a square ball can be played into space, which means that no one is there. I've played it laterally, and now you're running through and you're going to pick it up and go to goal. Or it can be you are at a support position immediately to my left. I will pass that ball to my left.
And again, this can be used professional level. This can be used down at our level. If you're playing for any sort of Sunday team, you can definitely, all communication is good, right? Isn't there a drill that you did early on with our team where we did, you can handle the ball. This is for guys we're working with some guys who hadn't played soccer much before. And we almost did like we played a type of like, it's like basketball, but you can't move, you can't dribble, right? So everyone just had to move the ball with their hands, pass it around. And you did it, no one's allowed to talk. Right? And then and everyone realised how hard it is to communicate about where you want the ball to be passed if no one's allowed to talk. Then you let everybody talk, and then you see how important all communication is.
Yeah, it's actually a really good drill because it also shows the importance of like movement and making those supporting runs to drop in behind, so then they can find.
Because everybody else can move,
pass.
right? The guy without the ball, everyone else can move. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else that's most important? I've got one really big one that's really important, but I want to leave it for any more for you.
I'm thinking. I don't have anything that come to mind, so you go ahead.
Your own name.
Oh, yes.
Is a massive one. If you've got, say, again, this is a very defendery type thing, but there's a ball in the air, and there's a thing of like, you've got to make a decision about who's going to go for it, who's going to challenge for it. What I do is yell my own name and jump, or Daryl's ball, something like that, and I jump and head the ball, or I go and make the tackle, because then everybody around me knows that I'm going, so therefore they don't have to go. Otherwise, you lose that sort of crucial moment where everyone's like, which one of us is doing this? So yell, go for it. And also, just a little bit, if you yell loud enough, you can intimidate the opponent. It's communicating to everybody, including the opponent, that you're coming and they better watch out.
Especially if they don't know that you're coming. If they're like jumping straight up and you're kind of coming at an angle, which you're not supposed to, but you can still do that cleanly. If you come in and scream that one, there's going to be that like just natural reflex duck a little bit. But it is just an element of, if we're on the same team, we might both go for the ball because neither one of us has properly called it. That could be a problem. But
he has chance of injury,
But the bigger problem is that if you're not yelling your name, then the other team can take advantage of that. So if somebody else, if your team is just saying like, I got it, my ball, that can be or me's, anybody's ball.
It could be the opposition talking.
Exactly.
You don't know who it is.
And that's happened to me before, where I would then leave a 50-50 ball because somebody said my ball, and then I would realize, oh no, that was that was the opponent, and now they have possession.
You're like, wait, that wasn't a West Midlands accent.
Exactly. I like the idea that you were my only teammate. That's good. I mean, so I think those are the basics, but I do think that those like really do. I'm sure there are other ones out there that are convey an even more like nuanced situation that would only happen at the professional level. But generally speaking, I think those are kind of the basics.
I've got one final thing to say. Actually, I have two final things to say, if you'll permit me. I will bet, as you go up the ranks, there is more talking at the professional level than at the lower level, because talking is so important.
I remember
good quality communication. The better level you go to, there's a lot more of it because it's such a valuable tool.
That was always part of the reason. Yeah, absolutely. Because part of the reason why at youth level, I was always told that like kids don't watch enough soccer, and why it's really important to have local professional franchises. Amongst the many other reasons is that when you watch on TV, you can't hear that. If you are for purposes of this argument, Richmond, if you're at a Richmond Kickers game, you can hear most of what's happening on the field. You can hear how often people are talking. And it shows to you that that's really the most important part of the game, that if you are existing in silence and you're not really communicating at all, you're going to be the losing team.
You're kind of hiding as well. If you're the one player not talking, you're slightly hiding. You're not doing your job. Right? Okay. While we're talking about rec soccer, one more thing I want to say is congratulations to the Vectors. The Vectors, coached by Omid Haidari, who listens to TSS. He asked for a load of advice like last year about how to set up a team, and we gave tips like, if you've got weaker players, like have them as one of your left-sided players, and have a stronger player also on the left side, so you balance it out. He said all that stuff worked.
Warm up, have a captain.
The Vectors won.
Well done,
the Vectors won in the playoffs, so congrats. Congrats to the Vectors.
Yeah. Next question, Daryl Grove.
Next question comes from Daniel Musser. Daniel says, I listened to the Lobs podcast titled Deconstructing American Soccer, so These Football Times podcasts. Daniel says, they argue that player talent in Major League Soccer hasn't advanced since the late 90s, when MLS was in its infancy. Their point of focus is on homegrown, not imported talents, so it doesn't matter about David Villa, David Beckham, whatever. They also assert that the collective level of play of all MLS players is the same or worse due to dilution of talent caused by overexpansion in the league. Do you agree? This is a timely question given Bastian Schweinsteiger's recent comments.
Yeah, do you want to talk us through those as well?
I can't remember the exact comments he made, but so Bastian Schweinsteiger come over, play for Chicago Fire. He was asked, like, what's the level of play like? And he essentially said, it's a little frustrating because like things don't happen at the same level as when you're with Bayern Munich or with the German national team. But I think he also said, like, I knew that coming in. So even though I get frustrated, it's like my job to deal with it when like certain runs I expect aren't made because I'm not playing for Bayern Munich or the German national team.
Right.
This isn't what Daniel asked about, but I think it kind of relates, right? Because everyone is very interested in what's the standard of MLS, because we don't really have a yardstick to judge it by. So we have to have these conversations to try and figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think you noted that Schweinsteiger, I think because he's German, is one of the few European players to just come over and be kind of blunt.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's part of the frustrating thing to go away from Schweinsteiger specifically for a second, one of the worst things about having to cover teams that are on their preseason tours of the United States.
Yeah. Champions Cup is coming, my friend.
I know. It's the same questions every time. It's like, what do you think of the United States? Do you think you'll ever play in Major League Soccer? What do you think? And like, no one is ever going to say like, yeah, I don't like it that much, or it's pretty bad. Yeah, this wasn't the city for me.
I got all these black pellets in my cleats.
Yeah, you're always going to get the yes, it's great. I will never rule anything out.
It's always improving.
What will happen, and then what you usually get is somebody like Ronaldo or Wayne Rooney saying, oh, you never know what's going to happen. Who wants to rule anything out? And then the headline the next day is Wayne Rooney commits to playing MLS in 2 years.
But even closer to the Schweinsteiger example is someone like, say, Gerrard saying, oh, yeah, it's tougher than I expected.
Yeah.
Right? So
David Villa, I think, recently said that, or maybe it was Giovinco. I forget who it was, but somebody who has only been here for a couple of years said, oh, man, it's way higher of a level than you would have expected.
But Schweini was just making clear that there are things that happen on Bayern Munich and the German national team that don't happen on Chicago Fire. Yeah. And there seems to have been this weird reaction where everybody's freaked out as if this is like something that no one knew. I could guess that things were happening on Bayern Munich and the German national team. I keep using those examples because they're such high-level examples that are not happening on the Chicago Fire. Of course they're not. Why is this a surprise?
Yeah. Well, I think a part of this, and they talk about it in that podcast, is that there is an issue that people don't ever want to criticize Major League Soccer. At least there's a large contingent of people
It's like our confidence is a little delicate, so we don't want to be pushed.
I think there are varying reasons for it. I think some people just want to believe that it's a great league and it shouldn't be criticized. But I do think that there are people, and it's worth remembering, like they're talking about the late 90s. Like that was a period when people legitimately didn't know if MLS was going to survive.
Yes.
And you had articles being written about how like, no, it's really good that they're losing 2 franchises. Like this can actually make it better, and it allows them to kind of like rebrand and redirect what they're trying to do. Like, so there is also, I think, that element too, that people are sort of still have that in the background of like, there was a time when soccer wasn't going to succeed, so I'm not yet comfortable saying like, oh yeah, it's not very good, and so there becomes this natural defense mechanism of like, no, you're wrong, it's great, and
it's the best league ever.
Yeah, and so I think
they should rename it Best Soccer League.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Best
and
soccer.
Also maybe is a name that they looked at. I wouldn't be surprised. And so I think, as with many things, the truth is somewhere in between.
Yeah,
that I would agree that maybe MLS definitely went through a fallow period where there wasn't enough emphasis on developing American talent. I think that there are reasons for that, ranging from it wasn't financially prudent to it wasn't the stated emphasis. If your whole job is to stop your house from flooding, you're not also going to be like, hey, we should redo the cabinets at the same time. Like it's you can't focus on the luxury aspects of it when you're trying to make the league survive.
Should we get down to the specifics of what Daniel was talking about and what was mentioned in the Lob podcast?
Sure.
And first I want to say, I think I'm going to disagree with what they said in the Lob podcast. I'm not trying to sort of start a podcast fight at all, right? This is just Daniel's question asking us our opinion.
Yeah.
But one of the things they mentioned is that in the late 90s, there were 12 teams and the rosters were 18 players big each.
Yep.
And therefore, the quality was higher. Right? Right now, there are 24 teams with a roster of 30 players each.
Yep.
I did the calculations. So that means in the late 90s, 12 by 18, 216 players in the league total, plus some additional like replacement roster players.
Can I take a guess? Does that mean 432?
Right now?
Well, if you had the 18, but you don't, you have larger rosters.
It's 24 by 30, which comes to 720.
Right.
So there is an argument that you do dilute the overall talent when the rosters get bigger, right?
Theoretically.
But that doesn't mean that the league is worse now than it was in 1996, 97, 98.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, it's worth expanding, because if it was just a 12-team league, the MLS and American soccer would not be getting very far with 12 teams.
No, and I think that there are other elements to that as well. And maybe this is off topic, but I think it relates. That we've talked to Alexi Lalas before and Eric Winalda, and a big reason why those guys have so many caps is because they spent, 3, 4, 5 years only playing together? That was all they did. It was before there was a professional league. I think that plays into it as well, that if you have these guys who have always played together and suddenly you have fewer teams and more opportunities for them to play together, they're going to look better by comparison and the national team will be stronger. But I think it's easy to say, we'll see, once you get more teams in there and more players, now talent's diluted, now they're not together, now it's weaker. And I would disagree with that. I think that's a natural product of getting more players and having more available money and available players there, that you're not relying on those kind of core guys, but instead you're diversifying where your talent is coming from.
I agree. And part of diversifying where your talent is coming from is the homegrown player initiative. And I really look at this as, definitely if you made this argument like mid-2000s, like 2004-ish, you could say, maybe things were better when we had Ronaldo and Lalas and sort of the league was a better quality because it'd just been contraction, right? And things were looking a little shaky. 2008, the homegrown player initiative starts. The league starts expanding up to 24 teams now. And now you have a situation where you have a lot of teams and a lot of very talented young players now coming through development academies. I would argue that things are better now. They call it MLS 3.0, right? Like the homegrown player era. And they're about to get much, 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 much better as these development academy kids like Andrew Carlton, Jesus Ferreira, Paxton Pomykal, as these guys come of age and they're the ones filling the league, I think we're about to see an explosion.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
The good kind of explosion, not the bad kind.
I know what you mean. But yeah, and so to that point, like then you have to look at what your goal is with a league.
Yes.
And if your goal is to create like a core group of players that can go far in a World Cup, then having a smaller league probably makes sense. But
maybe it depends if you want to spread it around and cast the net as wide as possible.
That's what I mean, though, is that I think by nature you're not. Then if you are trying to keep it small, you are basically saying only the top tier players that we think are the top tier players get to play professionally in this league.
So I'd say you wouldn't end up with a better national team, but you might end up with a better league, like in terms of concentrated talent in those 12 teams. Maybe.
And I think
it's not a good long-term plan.
I think what that would then do is then require you to have people go abroad and get their kind of like have that as their proving ground, and maybe that's a whole separate conversation. I would also add though that like so I agree with the idea that maybe you're right. In like the early 2000s, it wasn't as good. There's been the homegrown explosion. That's very good. But I'd also say, like, go back and look at that DC United roster when they won 3 of the first 4 titles. Yeah, that
Bruce Arena DC?
That one is stacked. Won't disagree with that. They're a very good team. They might beat the current DC United team.
I don't know. Some of those guys are pretty old now.
Okay, first of all, you know what I mean. But second of all, there's also lots of other teams that weren't that stacked and didn't win 3 titles in a row. And I think it's easy to remember DC United, LA Galaxy, and the Metro Stars and think of them as like, wow, they had all this crazy good talent and they had these big name players and they were so exciting. But there were lots of teams that did not have that talent. And, even teams that did, like Tampa Bay, do not exist anymore.
Right.
So you got to kind of factor that into the equation as well.
Yes, okay, I agree with that. So if we come to basically the same place, that talent has in a way been diluted, but also we're filling it back up with the initiatives that Major League Soccer and US Soccer has put in place. Yeah. And the future, I'd say the league looks good now. I would bet that also the quality of soccer, I think it looks better now because not only this, but the soccer-specific stadiums. We're playing on grass. We're not playing on fields with NFL marks on it, right? Which is a lot of the 96, 97, 98 teams were.
I think it's always difficult.
I think I'm talking about like wider angle stuff than just the quality of the roster.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But I was going to say I think it's always difficult because you could. I really could do pro-con pretty much every issue facing soccer in the United States, and I think argue both sides of it. Yeah. And that's not because I am so adept at arguing. It's because
it's complicated.
Yeah, and because there are positives and negatives to everything. So you could say
almost as if things can be 2 things.
It's almost as though things can be 2 things. So you could say U.S. Soccer has done a really good job of developing Major League Soccer, but I think there's also been the move away from, or like the lack of consideration for pro rel, the amount you have to buy in. That they've definitely made it a single entity, so then that becomes a problem. But then also maybe the league wouldn't exist without it. And so with anything, I think you can go back and forth, and there will always be reasons to be critical. Yeah. But I think there are definitely reasons to praise what has been done. And I think to your point
exists,
again,
we're out of business.
The league
exists. There are kids coming through.
I mean, look at that U17 roster. Look at the U20 roster. And I maybe it's just because we were really, really, really paying attention to those teams. You and I are now, but I don't think we would have in the past. And I think it's because they weren't as good. And I think you can already see at youth level how much stronger teams are because of those development systems.
Here's the biggest example I can think of. When we started this podcast in 2009, we didn't pay that much attention to Major League Soccer. Yep. And we did watch some, right? We would occasionally watch a game and be like, we don't really want to talk about that, right? We have seen the league improve year on year on year. And I'm sure if you just track our episodes, you'll see there's more MLS coverage every year. And to us, that's because we've turned it on TV and looked at it and been like, oh, that was entertaining. This was interesting tactically. We should talk about this guy. We should do that. So I think we're not the only yardstick, but it's the yardstick we're most familiar with, is how much attention we've paid based on how impressed we've been with what we've seen.
Yeah, and I think I want to add, though, to give you the credit, that we were talking about...
These are my favorite parts of the show.
We were talking about this off air, because I was saying, like, I don't necessarily know if I agree with that right away. And your point was like, well, look at Andrew Carlton, like, who's now is on an MLS roster, is this youngster who's come
Homegrown
up
player.
through. Yeah, and then my point was like, yeah, but Atlanta haven't existed for that long. And then your point was like, well, he played here, and then now they've...
He was at the Georgia United Academy.
Yeah, okay. And I think what I've realized since that conversation is just how many different whatever United Academies there were or whatever ODP program there was. You had them everywhere. And there was no real way outside of like a coach's say-so. And a lot of times that was very political. And a lot of times it was like, players not getting to play for as strong of programs as other players, and it created an imbalance. A lot of that stuff is still there, but at least with the development academies, you have a natural way to promote talent that then pulls talent in from elsewhere.
Yep, and the homegrown player mechanism means you can then play for the team that you are attached to. Since 2000, it used to be that you could have a player play for your DC United U16s, and then when it was time for him to enter Major League Soccer, he'd go through the draft.
Yeah,
so you wouldn't even be guaranteed to get him.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So at least, and that mechanism has since been put in place.
Yeah,
so that's why Andrew Carlton could go straight to Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, and that makes complete sense. But it's also that I don't want to say Andrew Carlton here because I know he is an actual player, but say you have Steve Jones playing for some team in, I don't know, Fredericksburg, Virginia, right? There's a chance that maybe some scout picks him up or somebody sees him at a tournament, or maybe he gets to play on an ODP team or a Virginia Select team, but there's a chance he doesn't. Whereas now he's in the catch pool of DC United. He's in that area where he would be a homegrown player. Maybe he comes to Richmond where you have Richmond United, which is that combination for the elite players.
Yep, it's a development academy.
And he gets pulled in there, and then he gets picked up. And it seems it's still very much like a pyramid at best, as opposed to a straight line in terms of how you make your way up. But I feel like it is a much clearer way to get to an actual development academy that could then lead you to the U.S. national team or wherever than I think it used to be. And I think a big part of that is those development academies and the system that's been put in place.
And that is why I'm not excited or not convinced by the argument that over-expansion or expansion dilutes the talent pool. Because what it does, even if in the first year it dilutes the talent pool of the whole league, which even that is arguable, you can also then say that it then plants... puts a farm that can plant seeds around it that then grows up new talent, right? So it just spreads like a virus, like a soccer virus.
But a good soccer virus.
Yeah.
And I think with that, we have come to the end of that conversation, at least for now.
Thanks, Pert Hapley. We have two more questions.
The story about this story is, it's a story.
We have two more questions, but first we should let you know that today's show is sponsored by X1 Fuel. X1 Fuel is a new sponsor this week. It is a pre- and post-workout formula for athletes who expect more from their workouts and on-field performance without sacrificing long-term health.
That's right. No chemical ingredients, no fillers, no excess sugars. That means it's safe for basically athletes of any age.
Yeah, and it is pitched at student athletes. It's athlete-tested, parent-approved.
Right.
This is the story behind X1 Fuel that Brett, the founder of the company, who I've emailed back and forth with, the story is that his son was in the FC Dallas Academy and he was looking for a formula to be able to, help his son when he was doing practice and playing games, but didn't want any of those. I don't want to name any, but there were some crazy sort of formulas and shakes on the market that are full of caffeine and sugar, and essentially they just get you all amped up before
we
you
gain
play.
4,000.
Yeah, is that a Cartman thing? Yeah, they get you all amped up before you go, but they're not necessarily good for you, right? Instead, X1 Fuel is made from acai berries, maki berries, goji berries, pomegranate, flax seeds, and pea starch.
Yeah, I mean, amongst other things. But so it gives you a lot of kind of natural superfoods and natural carbohydrates and starches that are kind of supplement what you would otherwise be eating.
And we also know some TSS listeners have already taken us up on the offer and purchased some X1 Fuel. We'd love to know how that goes for you. Taylor and I have tried this when we've gone to soccer practice. You said you felt sharp.
I did.
Yeah?
I did. I'll also say that this was developed because his son was in the FC Dallas Academy. So again, benefits of the academy system. X1 Fuel sponsors the Total Soccer Show.
Yeah, see, planting seeds.
Yes.
Planting acai berry seeds.
And customers can save 30% off when they purchase the Performance Bundle membership. That includes both the products.
The pre and post.
There we are. Plus a shaker bottle. It's fun to shake it around.
It really is.
X1 Dry Fit shirt and our on-the-go packs for busy athletes. Best of all, TSS listeners can get $10 off any nutritional product by using the coupon code TOTALSOCCER. That's all one word, all caps, at checkout.
And that will be in the show notes, correct, Taylor?
Correct, my friend.
I love committing you to things in the show notes.
I know you do.
Thank you to X1 Fuel for sponsoring today's episode.
Indeed, indeed. Next question comes from Colin Bish. He says, how does a young adult, I'm 24, start or join a competitive local team? To explain, I'm located in Raleigh, North Carolina, and currently play with my work team, which is 7-a-side, as well as playing a more competitive co-rec team.
I assume that means co-ed recreational team.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I played, it's always weird, I think, because co-ed seems like you should still be in school then, educational, I don't know. But I played at a higher level than anyone I'm currently playing when he was growing up. I'm not being cocky or self-promoting here. I just would like to play with people more in line with my skill level, says Colin. So what do we advise, Joe Grove?
So I think the thing is you got to be proactive.
Yep.
Right? If you want to join a better team, you got to go out and find one.
I hate the word networking, but you got to network.
It's kind of like networking, except you're not looking for
Sports
business.
Networking.
You're looking to join a soccer team. And if Colin is as good as he suggests he is, there's a team that will want his talents.
To clarify, that doesn't mean you're wearing a name tag and going to a carpeted lobby of a bad hotel. It means essentially continue to play, but play more often. Play pickup games. See what else is out there. Go to indoor games. You got
to meet some people.
See if your local league has an available players page. The one in Richmond does. I'm sure other ones around the country do. You could do that. But I think the way actually we started playing together was I was playing on a different indoor team than you. One of the guys that was on your team was like, hey, we have a team playing in this division, which was higher than the division I was playing in. Do you want to join that team? And I said, sure. And then that happened again a couple seasons later, and you kind of... And then
10 years later, here we are.
Yeah, exactly. But I think a big part of it is once you kind of get into, at least here in Richmond, and I would assume that this kind of can
I'm
be
guessing
expanded.
Raleigh's I think Raleigh's slightly bigger than Richmond. I imagine the soccer scene is kind of similar.
Well, I would say, and just nationwide, I do think that the soccer scene in any particular town or city or whatever is going to be such that, in Richmond, for example, if you start playing soccer, I'd say within a year you will know a bunch more people than you did, certainly, but you'll be able to say oh yeah, I went to this game and I saw this guy, and I was at this indoor game and I saw these 6 people and it kind of expands and expands and expands, and you create that network that then, if they're gonna put together a competitive team for a tournament or a beach soccer tournament or whatever, and you start to know those things. Yeah.
So this is my story coming to Richmond, right? I came to Richmond in 2005. I didn't know anyone except my wife, but I looked into, there's the CVSA, the Central Virginia Soccer Association. That is our local league. I put my name on the available players page, and a few people contacted me. But I also, here's the thing, I went and found the team we both play for, Richmond City FC.
Yep.
The reason that I was attracted to them is because, one, they were a club, meaning they had multiple teams throughout the league, which immediately tells me these guys are organised, right? And I wanted an organised team. And they had a contact page. When I emailed them, Andy Marr, who might be listening to this podcast actually, emailed me back.
In fact,
and we went back and forth about what the league was like and which team I should play.
Yeah, and because he might be, I will refrain from doing my terrible Scottish accent.
Please do. Please do. To this day, we both play for Richmond City FC, right? And even tomorrow's show, the Wikipedia game, we'll have 2 more Richmond City players on it to play the Wikipedia game.
That is correct.
So I think the point is to find an organised looking club, contact them, because they'll have a good setup.
Yeah.
My advice to Colin is go and look at the Triangle Adult Soccer League. That they have that in Raleigh, and look for the teams that look the most organised, and just reach out to them. Send them an email, say, are you looking for players? This is my position. This is what I'm good at. I'm interested in playing.
Yep. I think that is sage advice, my friend.
The other place I met some soccer friends and made some soccer contacts was playing pickup soccer.
Yep.
So Patrick Kennedy, who listens to the show, I met him there. You can do the same in Raleigh. You go on Facebook, look for some pickup soccer groups. Go on meetup.com. Heard of that? You can find some pickup soccer groups. Just go out there and play, and then ask around. You can tell when you play pickup soccer who the good players are. Yep. Then you talk to them and say, hey, do you play for a team? Can I join your team? You know what I mean? You're looking for players.
I'm
That's
sure
a good way to
there's
meet
probably
people.
a Raleigh Reddit page that you could
do
a post about I'm trying to start a pickup game once a week. Anybody interested?
The internet is a boon for people who want to meet up and play soccer.
Indubitably.
Any other advice for Colin here?
No, I think we have about covered all of my possible advice.
It's essentially be proactive. Don't go to bad hotel lobbies, because that will probably be like some sort of insurance.
Avoid name tags.
Avoid name tags.
I think of blazers and turtlenecks.
Yeah.
And pleated khakis.
And best of luck. Maybe, Colin, let us know if there's a team that you end up with.
Final question of the day comes from Mark Bujarski.
Yay!
And he says, what are each of your guys' favorite calls of all time? He says, I think Ian Dark's call at the World Cup 2014 with John Brooks scoring the winner versus Ghana.
So when Brooks ends up on the floor,
Or Martin Tyler calls against, or for Aguero scoring the winner for Man City. I don't like that one as much. And I'll say this, I actually went back because if you're a U.S. soccer fan from 2010, you will have very, very fond memories of Landon Donovan scoring that goal against Algeria.
Yep.
The video of everybody reacting to that still makes it very dusty in the room when I watch that one. But The call, not that good.
Is that right?
Because
who is it?
It's Ian Darke.
Oh,
in the same way that
shots fired on the Total Soccer
Well,
Show.
here's what I mean. The John Brooks one as well, because I thought of that too. Mm-hmm. It's Ian Darke being emotional, don't get me wrong, and doing a very good job of like conveying the excitement and enthusiasm. But the call itself, it's not sort of like that well-constructed thing that you want from a commentator. And I would say if you want one of those from Ian Darke, it is Jermaine Jones's goal against Portugal in the 2014 World Cup.
Yeah.
And I wrote it down because it is everything a commentator should do.
Okay.
So here it is.
So
Here's
shots
the call.
unfired.
He says, Jones, then he makes the like, ooh, noise because he's really excited as it hits the back of the net, then screams yes, then says Jermaine Jones, what a cracker from him, the USA level, then silence, and he lets the atmosphere build, he lets the crowd go nuts, and the key part there, I know this now from doing commentary ourselves, is that he's buying time for Taylor Twellman, who's the color commentator, to figure out what he wants to say about as the replays come about.
But I'll bet you Taylor Twellman was celebrating as well.
I'm sure you can hear him scream.
I bet
you can hear him in the
Twellman
Jermaine,
needs some time to
yeah. You can hear him in the John Brooks header too. I think he screams too. But that is my favorite Ian Darke call, is that goal for Jermaine Jones.
Okay, mine goes all the way back to 1966. It's the famous one.
Yep.
It's when England win the World Cup. I know this is an obvious choice, like so obvious that I'm almost embarrassed of it, but I can't deny that this is my favourite call. It's Kenneth Wolstenholme commentating for the BBC in the 1966 World Cup final. The score is 3-2 to England in extra time. There's been that Geoff Hurst goal that may or may not have crossed the line. It probably didn't, but it was given. So England are 3-2 up. And then Geoff Hurst sort of gets a breakaway. He's still on goal. Extra time is almost over.
Yep.
England are about to win the World Cup at Wembley. Kenneth Wolstenholme says, and here comes Hurst. He's about to describe like the other players. He has options, and then Kenneth Wolstenholme notices that some of the fans are already spilling sort of out of the stands and towards the field. And then he says, "Some people are on the pitch. They think it's all over." And then Geoff Hurst bangs it top corner, and he says, "It is now. It's 4." With such a perfect commentating on what's going on, but the series of events lends itself to the emotion and him being distracted by what's happening. But he could easily have blown that and been sort of panicked or confused by the people being on the field. And he manages to commentate on what's happening with the ball, what's happening with the fans, and he captures the emotion of the moment. He captures what all the fans are feeling, right? They think it's all over. It is now. It's become this incredibly famous English moment.
And Daryl's very, very happy.
I'm a little bit choked up.
I know you are, buddy. I think my favorite call from like a comedy standpoint, we had it in trivia when I did like the commentary round. It's the I found his name, Jack van Helder. I'm gonna guess is how you pronounce that one. The Dutch commentator for Dennis Bergkamp. Remember that one?
Yes.
You can find that one. The Dennis Bergkamp goal.
Did it just keep screaming Dennis Bergkamp,
Dennis Bergkamp, and then has lost it emotionally by the end and does his Dennis Bergkamp and then falls off mic, I assume.
But it's an accurate it's an accurate captures the feelings of what was happening.
And every single Dennis Bergkamp is for a different moment in the sequence.
Yeah.
So it's like he cuts back Dennis Bergkamp.
It's the I am Groot of Dutch commentary.
Yeah. That's a better one than I was going to go with the seagulls from Finding Nemo. It's like fine. But I would say overall, though, and this will come as no surprise, I'm guessing to you, my favorite call of all time remains. I believe it's Clive Tilsley?
Yeah,
Tilsley, thank you. Champions League final 1999, Manchester United versus Bayern Munich.
Of course, yeah.
And it's that entire...
That night in Barcelona.
Yeah.
He banged on about that for the next 20 years.
Well, he was right to do so because, it's the entire 2 minutes of United scoring and then scoring the winner, but it's like all the little lines in there, like when they get the throw-in that leads to the corner, that leads to the equalizing goal, he refers to that throw-in as a base camp for the last final assault. Just coming up with that one. Then when they get set to take the corner, can Manchester United score? They always score. Then they do score, Sheringham puts it in, name on the trophy, and then it ends with, and Solskjaer has won it. The kind of emotion combined with the clever wordplay, it's definitely my favorite call.
I've just realized people will want to hear these. Yeah. And I don't want to commit you to things in the show notes that will be a hassle. Yeah. I will find the links to these on YouTube and I'll give them to you to put in the show notes. Okay. How about that? So we can promise our listeners you can find these and listen to them. You can feel what it's like to win the World Cup in 66 and the Champions League in 99.
Beautiful.
Thank you to Matthew, to Daniel, to Colin and to Mark for those questions. We love doing listener questions.
We do indeed.
Worth reminding people, if you subscribe to the Total Soccer Show with a voluntary subscription, if you subscribe at $10 a month or more, we guarantee to answer one question per month on the Total Soccer Show. We have many, many people who are subscribed at that level and are not asking a question a month. We want to invite you to, send us contact at TotalSoccerShow.com, put in the subject line $10 a month question, and give us your question. We will answer it as long as it's kind of reasonable. Not like list your top 100 players of all time.
Yeah.
That's a work project you just gave us. But ask us an actual question, and we will definitely answer it on the show.
Yeah, that 100 players one would get boring real quickly.
I'll just do Steve Bull 100 times.
Yeah, that's fair. So thank you to everyone who sent in questions, and thank you to everyone who sent in scouting reports.
Oh, yeah, we got some news, some exciting news.
We had many reports. We're doing 4 today.
Okay. You want to start? Or
Sure. First one is the one we received most recently.
Yep.
Comes from Juan Carlos Ellis, scouting Mallory Pugh, the 19-year-old American attacker.
This email is how I learned about the Mallory Pugh news.
Yep.
For those who don't know, Mallory Pugh is going pro. She didn't know where she was going to go.
Yep.
We seem to have some sort of development.
Stephen Goff of the Washington Post has written that Pugh will most likely end up with the Washington Spirit. She met with the Spirit GM, and it seems that things have improved there in terms of both her feelings towards the club as well as the kind of instability surrounding Washington. The Spirit have not received any formal trade offers either, so it looks like things will stay as they are. Goff also mentions that Sunil Gulati has been involved deeply in the process so that it can come to a resolution, and we all know how good he is working a room, even from Bahrain, where FIFA are currently meeting.
So for those who don't know as well, Mallory Pugh, it seemed, wanted to go to Portland. She wanted to play for the Thorns. Washington Spirit have her rights, and we're kind of like, we want to keep. We'd like to have her play. There's no bigger prize, right?
I don't think they don't have a rights. I think they have the first pick.
Well, that's sorry. I'm not very good with American terminology, but they have they're top of the allocation order, so that she goes to them.
Sure.
Yeah, and they didn't want to trade her away because why would you not? Right? Getting Mallory Pugh on your team right now is good for business, good for goals.
Yep.
Good for speed.
Exactly. So well done, Stephen Goff, and well done, Juan Carlos Ellis, for sending in that update.
Up next, Kyle Painter is scouting Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, the 22-year-old Serbian central midfielder for Lazio. Kyle tells us that Sergej is now playing for Lazio midfield. They've qualified for at least a Europa League spot. They also have a Coppa Italia final on May 17th against Juventus. Lazio versus Juventus, May 17th, with a TSS Scouting Network player right in the middle of it.
Which I think is important to note because Juventus quietly on track for a treble that no one is talking about. Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm guessing they're going to win the league. Just a shot in the dark.
Well, Sergej Milinkovic-Savic stands in their way.
I'm going to say
Sergej, okay.
If I were to guess, yeah.
Okay, Sergej. He's also recently signed a contract extension, but is still linked with the likes of Arsenal, Manchester United, Juventus, of course. You play in Italy, Juventus, look at you.
That's how it works.
And most regularly, Carl says, Chelsea, who reportedly want him as a replacement for Nemanja Matic, his national team teammate.
Yeah, that could be drama.
Is Matic getting towards the end?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't know. I think anytime anybody is linked with anybody, somebody has to go according to the newspapers, and so apparently it's Nemanja Matic this time. Taylor Williams emails in scouting Matthew Olasunde, 19-year-old American defender for Manchester United.
Some people's heads just exploded.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so he was with the Red Bulls, is that correct?
Yeah.
And then basically moved
the Red Bull
to
Academy.
Manchester. Yeah, there we are. Matt was spotted training with the Manchester United first team ahead of the team's game against Celta Vigo. That is, I think, just now finished, but we have the TV off because Daryl knew I would be distracted. It's unlikely he will be in the matchday squad, but the fact that he was in the 24-player training squad seems to indicate that he is making progress.
And just to be clear, that's a 19-year-old American right back, Matthew Olasunde. Olasunde is in the Manchester United, not quite matchday squad, but almost, right? The training squad for the matchday is like you're just on the edge.
Yes, with the caveat that when 9 players are out with injury. But still,
he's closer than any other American right back right now.
Exactly. Well said, Daryl Grove.
Okay, final report today comes from Sean Dickey, and it's about one of my favourite players up and coming, Weston McKennie, the 18-year-old American midfielder for Schalke U19s. So we mentioned this briefly yesterday, but Sean's given us the full report. Weston started for Schalke U19s against Bayern Munich U19s in the first leg of the German U19 Championship semi-final on Wednesday. Weston went the full 90 at centre mid in the 3-1 win. This game was particularly special as Haji Wright, Weston, McKennie and Nick Tatague started the match and made significant impacts. I keep pronouncing Nick Tatague's name differently each time.
Yep.
I'm going to get it right eventually.
It's your Pablo Dybala. Pablo Dybala?
So Tatague drew the penalty that Benjamin Goller scored to put Schalke up 2-0. And after Bayern got a goal back with a penalty, Haji Wright put Schalke up 3-1 with a left-footed strike off an assist from NT, Nick to tag you. Schalke now prepares for their second leg in the semi-final against Bayern next Tuesday. The winner of both legs faces either Borussia Dortmund, who have Will Pulisic, cousin of Christian, native of Virginia, in goal, or VfL Wolfsburg, who we don't know much about, in the final. Currently 3-2 to Dortmund, the first leg of the semi-final.
There it is.
Yeah.
All right, so exciting times in Germany, as ever.
Lots of America. I feel like we keep stressing this. I don't know why. I feel like the need to make sure everybody knows there are a ton of American teenagers in Germany, specifically at Schalke, that we should be excited about.
This is factual.
Yeah, this is factual. And Weston McKennie is the man.
Yes.
In that he's a big dude.
I mean, Haji Wright would like a word with you about being the biggest, most intimidating player on that team.
And I get that Haji Wright has scored a bunch of goals, but every time I see Weston McKennie, and I've not seen like long stretches of him, but every time I see him, he looks like a man who is absolutely bossing the midfield.
I think you
physically, mentally, and technique-wise.
I think, yes, he's 18, but you could just leave it as he looks like a man. And
he looks like a grown-ass man, right?
Yep.
Isn't that what they used to call Eddie Johnson? Grown-ass man.
Probably.
Yeah, when he was a youngster.
That sounds likely.
But Weston McKennie will be bossing midfields for Schalke soon. He's the new Mahmoud Dahoud.
Sure. Okay. I'll let you stand by that one.
Okay. You're going to put that on the board with my other crazy statements?
I might. Yeah. We'll see. I'm running out of room.
Before anyone emails in, I know that Mahmoud Dahoud played for Borussia Mönchengladbach, not Schalke. It's just the first name that came to mind.
All right.
Okay.
So, thank you to Juan Carlos, Kyle, Taylor, and Sean for those reports. Dale, thank you for talking to me today. That's right.
Thank you.
I'm jumping ahead. Yeah.
You're welcome.
We've got Wikipedia game to prep. We got two people coming in.
All right, listeners, thank you for listening. Hope you've enjoyed the show. If you've got questions, contact at TOTALSOCCER.com, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow with a Wikipedia game.